You're listening to Wildlife Control Consultant, where we provide research-based information on all things related to vertebrate pest management. Hi everyone, Stephen Van Tassel here, Wildlife Control Consultant, bringing another episode of the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast. Hey, glad to have you on board. I hope your week went well. So I am, again, still getting a little bit of traveling in, but my schedule is certainly starting to slow down a little bit now. It's to catch up with some projects that I need to get on with. Well, anyways, I'm sure many of you in the podcast world are very, very busy, basically. So, because this is the time of the year where a lot of the young are coming out, and your phone is probably ringing off the wall. Nevertheless, I'm glad you've taken a few moments of your day, or perhaps while you're listening in your vehicle, that you're listening to the podcast. Appreciate that. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, yes, even criticisms, you can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. If you're wondering what we're all about, well, the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast is about all things related to the scientific study and technical information related to vertebrate pest control. Vertebrate because we're dealing with animals that have a spine, right? Backbone. So we're calling them wildlife. Absolutely. So anyways, we're glad to have you on board. Definitely you can check out my website if you're looking for some resources that would help you in your work, or perhaps you're a non-professional. Some of these could be useful for you as well. Today I'm just going to spotlight the rodent inspection tool, and you can see that listed there. Very helpful in terms of doing some inspections around buildings. If you're looking for a quick way to determine, can a mouse fit in that hole? Well, you just simply probe rather than having to measure. Flip it over to the other side and it'll tell you whether a rat can get in. Also has the tip, will tell you whether you can measure scat to say whether it's a mouse scat or a rat scat by quick measurements. It also has hash marks on it as well for measurement if you decide to measure it. Quite interesting little tool if you happen to pick one up. Definitely reach out. You can grab one. We'll be happy to send you one. All right. Well, what's today's topic going to be about? Well, I had the privilege, I should say, of taking a class. It was this class here. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit more for some of you looking to see that. All right. So it's the PMP PestControlU.net spring training. And it's a class done by, I forgot the professor's name. When we get to the website, we'll be able to see that, but it's Pest Control University. And why don't I just click this to have it pull it up that way. That'll be a little bit easier. But I just finished this course. It is a online training that you can take. Again, PestControlU, that's the letter U.net, everything technicians need to know, and it's sponsored by the Pest Management Professional magazine. So I was able to take this class, and the class specifically was created by Dr. William H. Robinson, and it is a series of 14 modules. Each module has about 3 PowerPoints. Some may have 4, some may only have 3, but I think pretty much all of them have a minimum of 3, and they're broken down. The first module is primarily what they call text. Does have images in it, but it's called text, where it gets a little bit more detailed on biology of the various insects. And of course, it breaks things down, by, stinging insects and ants and termites and cockroaches and things like that. And then it also will have additional PowerPoints that'll kind of drill down into sort of summarizing some of the concepts for the technician's benefit, to help you memorize things a little bit more. And there's a little bit of overlap, and that helps you with the apprehension of the material, right? Because if you just hear it once, sometimes you miss things. So there is a little bit of overlap, and helps you put it into longer term memory as you're preparing for the quiz. Each module has 2 quizzes. One quiz is after the text. That would be the first module. And then the other quiz is after what they call the PowerPoint modules. But keep in mind, all of the information is based in PowerPoint. So you're basically going slide by slide by slide as you're working your way through it. Now, it took me about 3 days to finish it. Now, again, I was able to just simply plow through and do the modules that way. 3 days, maybe 4, but they weren't full time in the training. And I'm a pretty fast reader, but I was able to get through, and I was also taking notes, right? So I was taking pretty detailed notes, almost filled one of these little type booklets, like a moleskin type booklet of 6x8 version booklet from like moleskin, almost filled one of those. And yeah, so it was a lot of information, especially for someone who's not a bug guy. I'm learning about bugs. I'm trying to deepen my understanding of bugs. So it was definitely helpful in the sense that reinforced some things or reminded me of things I had to learn study for my ACE exam, which nearly broke me, to be sure. It was a lot of work to study for that exam, and so I was able to good to see some things getting repeated and then learning some new concepts. So let me kind of give you a little bit of a review on this particular course, right? So that way you can decide whether it's something suitable for you. Now you say, well, Stephen, most of this training was on bugs. Yes. However, I think it's important, even for people who are just doing wildlife control, that you learn a little bit more about the insect world, because the fact of the matter is there's more money in the insect world. And you may find that sometimes, just as pest control operators are moving into the wildlife control space to try to drum up more business and get that angle in to get those longer term contracts, some wildlife control operators are also learning about the pest control world from the wildlife control side of things. But nevertheless, it can be helpful for you to understand bugs a little bit more, because some of these bugs have medical significance too. So it doesn't certainly hurt to help you understand what is involved in pest control. Maybe you just want to dabble in it a little bit. Get your pest control license, learn how to use rodenticides with certainly the rodents and some of those vertebrates, but also maybe do some cockroach work, or maybe you want to do some things in the area of maybe bed bugs, or doing some spider type work, or maybe bees. Bed bugs, I wouldn't start with that particular pest, but maybe get into some stinging insects. Some wildlife control operators kind of get their finger into the pest control world that way. And so it's just something to think about. Do keep in mind that if you're going to be using pesticides on someone else's property, you're going to need to contact your Department of Agriculture for your state and make sure you're properly licensed in doing that. So it also, of course, has the final chapter was on vertebrate control, and I am going to do a little bit more talking about that. But let me kind of give you a brief overview, because this training is being advertised, and you can see if it's certainly suitable for you. So as I said already, there's 14 modules and 2 quizzes for each module. There are 10 questions, true-false questions for each module, and it's unnarrated, so there's nothing for you to listen to. You're not going to be able to, take this while you're driving and listening along. You're going to have to read all of these pages, because none of the material is narrated. So in terms of the positives, let me start with that. Of course, a wealth of information. If you've been in the business for a long period of time and doing pest control work, I'm not sure you're going to find anything earth-shattering here. This training, in my opinion, is really designed for sort of that new technician that you want to kind of get up to speed without having necessarily to do a lot of the teaching on your own. Okay, so this would certainly save you time. Maybe you would be out doing some work and tell the technician, stay in front of the computer and get kind of a better foundation after they get their license, have them take this training so they get a sense of what is involved. Now, there is a manual that accompanies this particular training that you're supposed to get. I did not get a copy of that particular document, but nevertheless, I think it would be helpful. It probably would have saved me a lot of writing. And but I have not seen the book, which I'm assuming are basically printouts of all of those screens that you're going to be flipping through. And that would have saved me a lot of time going through the information, and it would have been helpful, but I did not have access to that. He tries, the information is designed again for beginners, but people who have some moderate training will find some of the information, of course, useful. What I found, and I've been to a fair number of trainings, again, I'm not a professional pest controller, but I found the module that talked about the spray cans, your sprayer, to be very helpful in terms of talking about the role of pressure and how many pumps it took to reach certain pressures and what that pressure got you in terms of how much pesticide was coming out the business end, nozzle tips. Talked a little bit about repairs and maintaining your sprayer. But it's also, what I found interesting was how much there was about drift in terms of that when you're spraying baseboard, and they really trashed baseboard spraying, but they just said if you're spraying a baseboard, talked about how much of that pesticide is drifting off, bouncing off the wall and coming onto your clothes. And I was like, okay, I hadn't really thought about that a whole lot. And I'm just wondering how many people out in the pest control world who are using their sprayers are thinking about that as well. And maybe it's just something that I've missed, but I thought that was an important point. And it's not that we want to get paranoid, but you do need to understand that there is concern about micro exposures to various pesticides. Now, not all pesticides have the same level of risk, to be sure, but if you're doing this day in, day out, those are a lot of micro exposures that you're getting over time that you may not have thought about. And so you might want to be thinking about how you're using your sprayer to reduce your exposure risk to some of the pesticides that you're spraying out of your B&G sprayer. So I found that to be rather insightful. In terms of hours, it probably took me 14 to 15 hours. I would say about an hour a module. It was hard for me to come up with a real exact answer because I wasn't timing myself perfectly. But I also really struggled with the quizzes. As someone who has done a little bit of work in quiz design, I really hated a lot of the quizzes. I found the questions at times to be somewhat ambiguous and at times tricky. And I swear, I don't have an example of it in front of me at the moment, but I swear some of the answers are wrong. And that is what you got in the training. There was a mistake when they coded the quiz. It got to the point, and I know I'm getting into some of the negatives here, but I probably spent at times a third to a half of the time it took me to study the module just to take the quiz. And it was only 10 question quizzes. Again, there's 2 quizzes, 2 10-question quizzes for each module. So in the beginning, what I did was I followed everything in order. I took the first PowerPoint in the module, then the quiz comes directly afterward. But it would take me so long to get through that quiz, I actually had to create a grid because I would be looking at my notes and I would say, how am I getting this wrong? And then I would have to try to figure out which question was the one question that I had wrong, and then flip the answer to get 100% because it required 100% in order for you to get that checked off. I wish they would change that. I wish they would change it to 80%, even 90% would have been a blessing. And if they gave you some instruction as to why that answer was the way it was. I know that would be more work for the creators, having done some online training. It would have been certainly some more work in that regard. But I think given the fact that we're dealing with some newbies, and I would throw myself into kind of being a newbie on that level, it's extraordinarily frustrating. And I would say that I've actually lost information because I was more concerned about moving on. The test wasn't a way for me to assess my learning. It was actually more of a frustration for me to kind of get through it. And so, because I would go through the quizzes sometimes, I'm like, did I just hit the wrong button? Because you have, it's true, false. It's a binary choice. And I'd be like, well, did I hit true by accident when I meant false? And that what made it mess up? Extraordinarily frustrating. And so the strategy that I'm going to give you now helped me complete the course, the later modules, faster than the earlier modules. So this is what I'm going to suggest that you do: is you take PowerPoint 1, go through that, skip the quiz, go to the other PowerPoints, finish those, then do the PowerPoint quiz. It's called PowerPoint quiz. The first one's called the text quiz. So do the PowerPoint quiz first, then go back and do the text quiz. And that's what I found to be faster, because there was a little bit of overlap between the exams, and it was helping you by reading the following PowerPoints. You got additional reinforcement on information that will help you answer the questions, not only for the PowerPoint quiz, but also for the text quiz. At least I found it that way. And so, but like I said, I actually had to create a table and go question 1, question 2, question 3, and then write down, did I write true? Did I write false? To try to figure out which one I had wrong. A very few quizzes did I get 100% the first time through. And that was a little, I was certainly hurting my ego, but there were times that I do think that there were some errors in the quiz. Now, some of that obviously is my error, but as someone who's taken a lot of tests over time, a lot of different exams, there was no way that it would have been this frustrating, particularly with the way I was taking notes. And also the way some of the questions are written. I'll give you an example. Sometimes when they give you a sentence and they would ask you whether it was true or false, it would contain two statements of fact in that one sentence. Of course, with a true statement, both facts have to be true in order for the statement to be true. And the material didn't always detail both facts. So you'd have to ask the question, are they asking you to imply the answer, or are they asking you concretely to derive the answer from the material? So it was very conflicting in that regard. So it didn't always use what's called best test design in that regard. So I found at times it was almost tricky to a fault. So just be aware of that. Still valuable information, but that is, as you can tell, it really raised my blood pressure, and it really made the training go a lot longer than what I think it should have gone. And maybe if I had the manual, maybe that would have helped. Maybe it would have helped me see some facts that I got wrong. But when I was having to create charts to get through the quiz, I mean, there's obviously something wrong with that. And I often had trouble with the last question, trying to get that last 100%. And that was very frustrating for me. Now, there's a lot of text. So if you're not necessarily a fast reader, that may be a problem. Now, there's not as much text as there would be if it was a book. These are PowerPoints, but some of the slides got a little wordy. It was almost like you're reading a paragraph or two, and that can certainly slow you down. So if you're not a fast reader, that can be certainly a challenge. I would have liked to have seen more images in the document. PowerPoint is supposed to be more of a visual exercise than a text exercise, but some of the images that they did have were powerful and would be useful. But it was a little uneven. I just think it could have used a little bit more polishing on the layout side, and it could have been used a little bit more help on the editing side. Now, let me give you a few more issues that I had with the document. I did see some typos. like in the vertebrate chapter, which was kind of, obviously a big chapter for me, it talked about Norway rats weighing up to 1.5 pounds. And that really struck me as odd because I remember Dr. Corrigan saying a rat that weighed over a pound is just not really heard of. So I think what happened was that it was a typo in the sense it probably meant 15 ounces rather than 1.5 pounds. So I think there was an error there in the transcription. That's my suspicion. The other thing was that it did, in a positive sense, it talked about, of course, your Norway rat, your roof rat, your house mouse. But it also mentioned Peromyscus and Pasking, which was valuable. I think that was certainly important. It did mention that, they're not really, living full time inside of structures. I'm not sure if that's true. I've heard that before, but it's something I've been trying to investigate. Of course, I have deer mice that are always trying to invade I should say Peromyscus because it might be white-footed. It's very hard to tell them apart without DNA testing, and I'm not doing that many measurements to figure it out. But I have enough traps and rodenticides around my structure that, yeah, I'm not going to be having a full-time deer mouse living in the building. But I do wonder if they will live in the building, and so my suspicion is that they will. I think when I was in Lincoln, Nebraska, that yeah, they will live inside and harbor inside of a building. So I'm not sure that's true or false. I'd love to get some comments from you out in the world, what your encounters were in the field on that. I think that's about it. So let me just sort of kind of summarize here. Do I think that the training is worth it? I think the retail value of it, I believe, is $250 if I saw that correctly. They have a special going on right now till July to get 60% off, which takes it down, I think, to $99, and they will send you the manual. And so if you're new to pest control and you're wanting to break into it, I think this is worth it. $99 for the amount of information. Actually, here it says $149 per individual, and you get the printed material, I guess, as well. But here's that website, PestControlU.net. So PestControlU, that's the letter U, .net. So PEST control CONTROL, the letter U.net, and that'll bring it to you. And it's 24 hours, and you just kind of work your way through it. It keeps track of where you're at, and it gives you a certificate when you are done. But take good notes, and remember that it's 100% you're going to require in the quiz, and I would love if any of you are taking it. I don't make any money off of this. I'm not getting paid for this. I want to make sure that's clear. I haven't been asked to review it. I'm just simply took the class and I figured, yeah, this is going to be kind of useful for me. And I think it's something that could be helpful for people who are thinking about getting into pest control. There is some foundational information here that's going to be useful for people getting into the work. And if you are a full service pest control company, this could be a training that could be helpful for you, but do keep in mind, do warn your workers that challenge with the 100% quiz limit. Maybe if there's enough people putting a little pressure, they can back off on that a little bit, help people move through the training a little bit faster, or perhaps really double check those quizzes. It's very easy when you're coding this stuff in to make a mistake and to see if things are ambiguous. Found some questions that were like, well, that, it's kind of how you read it. And, and it's very easy to read it in a way that the author didn't mean to have it read. And that makes an ambiguous question, especially when you're dealing with true false. So definitely check it out. Pest Control U, and it's put on by Pest Management Professional Magazine, and it's actually created by Dr. Robinson, who certainly has a wealth of information in him. And I think you'll be enriched by it if that's something you're interested in doing. As far as the vertebrate pest side, yeah, it can be somewhat helpful there. Certainly, I think there are going to be better trainings if you're just looking to get into vertebrate pest control. Uh, Probably I'd put your time in somewhere else. So, but nevertheless, check it out. Well, you've been listening to the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast, where we cover all things related to vertebrate pest management from a technical, scientific point of view. Hope you found this helpful. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, yes, even criticisms, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in being on the show, we'd love interviewing people who have products and supplies available. We'd love to have you on our show. You can definitely reach me by wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. All right, well, that's it for this week. Until next time, take care, everyone.
This is the disclaimer for Wildlife Control Consultant podcast. Vertebrate pest control is an inherently dangerous activity involving risk of bodily injury to you, others, and/or property. Vertebrate pest control also involves legal issues, so be sure to always follow national, state, provincial, and local laws when using pesticides and/or other control methods when controlling pests. Wildlife Control Consultant LLC, Stephen M. Van Tassel, or their affiliates are not responsible for your use of the information provided here. Always consult a qualified and appropriate professional before employing the information provided here.